In a world where love is a luxury, obligation is the currency. Hana stood at the balcony of a grimly elegant high-rise, staring at the sprawling city beneath her, the life she never chose flickering like the distant lights below. Locked in a marriage with Kang Jun-ho, a CEO renowned for his unyielding demeanor, Hana felt like she was trapped in an elaborate chess game designed by the powerful elite who orchestrated her life. Their first encounter was a stark reminder of her reality. Jun-ho's icy blue eyes had scrutinized her like she was a mere asset in his corporation, rather than a woman carrying hopes and dreams. With little choice but to embrace her role as his wife, Hana sank into the mundanity of her existence, enveloped by the oppressive silence between them. Days turned into years, each one blending into the next in a cycle of loneliness. Hana busied herself with routines, preparing his favorite meals, keeping the house pristine, attending endless social gatherings that meant nothing to her. Each effort went unnoticed by Jun-ho, who remained preoccupied with business deals and climbing the corporate ladder, his existence overshadowed by ambition. She longed for even a flicker of warmth, a hint of affection, yet a mere brush of his hand was a luxury she could never afford. It was as if she were another piece of furniture in their lavish home, perfectly arranged but utterly invisible. Despite the emotional chasm between them, a lingering hope flickered in Hana's heart. Maybe, just maybe, there would come a day when Jun-ho would truly see her, the woman behind the carefully crafted image. She reminded herself of the days that followed their union, those brief moments of brightness when he would laugh at a shared joke or smile at a fond memory. Yet as the years wore on, the laughter faded, and she began to see the truth. Her love was not reciprocal, but rather an unrequited yearning that drained her spirit. One fateful evening, after a particularly exhausting week filled with cold shoulders and disinterest, Hana gathered the strength she had fought so hard for. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she confronted Jun-ho, her voice trembling but resolute. "I want a divorce." His response was shockingly clinical. He simply nodded, reiterating that he had no objections, as if she had asked to change a light bulb. In that stark acceptance, Hana felt a weight lift off her shoulders, yet it was painfully intertwined with the realization that she had been just a casual arrangement in his life. As she stepped out into the world alone, freedom wrapped around her like a warm quilt against the biting cold. Yet, as days turned into weeks, an unforeseen void wedged itself into Jun-ho's heart. The house became a shell, an echo of what it was with Hana's vibrant presence. Mornings without her signature breakfast and evenings lacking her laughter filled him with guilt and an aching regret that no deal could mend. Memories flooded back, the way she would dance in the kitchen, the playful banter that peppered their late-night conversations. He began to understand that he had overlooked the essence of their time together, the simple, precious nuances that had made life truly fulfilling. Compelled by loneliness and yearning, Jun-ho reached out to Hana one rainy afternoon, standing beneath the awning of the art gallery, where she found solace. As he watched her discuss a painting with an artist, a raw nerve of realization struck him. She was thriving without him. He approached her with a mix of desperation and newfound reverie, his voice wavering as he stammered, I realize how much I took you for granted. Can we start over?" Hana's heart raced, torn between the ghost of love that had once burned brightly and the walls she had built to protect herself from further heartbreak. "Jun-ho, it's not that simple," she replied, her voice steady but soft. As he gazed into her eyes, he saw the reflection of a woman who had finally begun to reclaim her power, who no longer silenced her own needs for his approval. It was a painful truth, yet one that lit a fire of understanding in Jun-ho's chest. "I want to be better, not just for you but for myself," he confessed, vulnerability etched across his features. There, beneath the chaotic strokes of paint in the gallery, surrounded by the essence of rebirth and expression, Hana felt something within her shift. Could she forgive the man who had made her feel so insignificant? Could she allow herself to explore the complexities of their love anew? "What if this was the moment when we both decide to grow?" she asked, her heart fluttering with uncertainty. In that small space between hope and heartache, they stood, two souls teetering on the brink of a fragile renewal. While the answer wasn't easy, and the path ahead remained obscured, both realized that the journey was worthwhile, and it began with the courage to confront the pains of their past. As they walked out together into the rain, Hana took a deep breath, feeling the droplets wash away not just the remnants of yesterday, but the weight of her fears. Junho moved closer, his hand brushing against hers, a small gesture that lit a flicker of hope, promising that while love can sometimes be a difficult road, it is paved with moments of vulnerability, honesty, and the willingness to change. Love can often turn into a lonely silence, where two people live side by side yet worlds apart. Seo Hana found herself surrounded by opulence in the large, modern apartment that Kang Junho had chosen. The vast spaces echoing her discomfort. The first weeks of their marriage felt like navigating a maze, with walls of indifference rising higher each day. Junho, enthralled by the relentless demands of his corporate empire, scarcely acknowledged the woman he had married. Hana's attempts to connect, prepared meals, small gestures of affection, were met with absent nods and distracted glances, leaving her feeling more like a decorative piece in a lavish display rather than a cherished partner. Every evening, as Junho buried himself in work, Hana would linger in the kitchen, slicing vegetables and creating meals infused with the remnants of her hopes. Each dish she crafted was a silent love letter, a hope she dared to believe might reach him amid the noise of his ambitions. She often set the table with a meticulously arranged setting, candles flickering in silent anticipation of a shared moment. But dinners became solemn affairs, filled with the clatter of cutlery and the rustle of papers, not the warmth of shared laughter or whispered dreams. She often caught herself staring at him, wishing for a spark, a shared smile, anything to break the suffocating silence that surrounded them. Hoping to glean some glimpse of affection, Hana even wore the delicate necklace Junho had gifted her, its silver charm of entwined hearts weighing heavily around her neck. As she prepared for formal events, she adorned herself with eye-catching dresses that flowed elegantly with her movements, expecting that perhaps beauty might catch his eye. However, all she received were fleeting glances from Junho, his thoughts consumed by business deals and deadlines. Her heart sank deeper, leaving behind remnants of her once unfaltering optimism that love could heal the void. One evening, at a lavish gala organized by Junho's company, Hana stood beside him, feeling like a ghost in her own life. Confident executives surrounded them, cloaked in power and aplomb, their laughter echoing like a foreign language. She squeezed his hand, bringing an anticipatory warmth to the gesture, daring to break the barrier of distance that had become their unspoken norm. Junho looked down, his expression glazed over with obligations, as he responded absent-mindedly, "That's nice, dear," before his attention drifted to his colleagues. Stifling her disappointment, Hana turned away and slipped into the dimly lit terrace, desperate for a breath of fresh air. At that moment, a familiar face approached her. It was Hyunjin, her childhood friend, who had always understood her struggles. "You look lost," he said gently, leaning against the railing, concern etched on his brow. Disheartened, Hana recounted her feelings, the overwhelming isolation that hung in the air between Junho and herself. "It's like I'm married to a stranger," she confessed, tears brimming in her eyes. Hyunjin's gaze softened as he spoke. "Sometimes the hardest battles are fought within us. You deserve to be seen, Hana. Don't let his indifference dim your light." His words ignited a flicker of resolve within her. A week later, she found herself standing in front of the mirror, contemplating her reflection. Self-acceptance was a battle long overdue, and as her fingers brushed against her necklace, she made a decision. Instead of striving to reach Junho's unreachable standards, she would start by reclaiming her own identity. In the days that followed, Hana shifted her focus from seeking Junho's attention to rediscovering her own passions. She began volunteering at a local art center, teaching children to paint, and those hours brought her immeasurable joy. Each splash of color mirrored the awakening within her, igniting creativity she had long buried beneath her marital expectations. With her heart slowly mending, Hana started to embrace the possibility of her own happiness away from Junho's grasp. Meanwhile, the emptiness in Junho's heart lingered painfully with Hana's absence. Even at work, she occupied a space in his mind he could no longer ignore. Her laughter echoed in the corners of his memory, and his sleep-deprived nights were filled with dreams of the wife he had taken for granted. One night, while reviewing old photographs, he stumbled upon one where Hana had been smiling widely, her eyes sparkling with joy as they celebrated their first anniversary. It was a stark reminder of the woman he barely knew anymore. Driven by a sudden urge, Junho decided to attend one of Hana's art classes uninvited, hoping to reconnect. In the intimate studio filled with vibrant colors and laughter, he spotted her, animatedly guiding a group of children. There was a light in her presence that he had never noticed before, a warmth radiating from her that seemed to fill every corner. Watching her with the children, he felt a rush of emotions he could no longer ignore: regret, longing, and desire to bridge the chasm between them. As the session ended, he hesitated, unsure if he should approach her. But the brief moment of eye contact melted the distance, and he took a step forward, the words pouring out before he could think twice. "Hana, can we talk?" Caught off guard, yet intrigued, Hana smiled but remained guarded. "Talk about what, Junho? Where do we begin?" His heart raced as he met her gaze, the vulnerability of the moment palpable. "About us. I realize I've kept my distance for too long, and I can't keep pretending anymore. I see you now." In that pivotal moment, everything crystallized between them. Acknowledgement of pain, shared longing, but also the understanding that they had each been on their own journeys. While the path to rediscovering love might be fraught with the scars of their past, there was a glimmer of hope shimmering in the horizon, the kind of hope that speaks of growth and understanding. "I'm still here, Junho," she replied softly, her defiance giving way to cautious optimism. "But love isn't just about saying the right words, it's about action too." Together, they stepped into uncertainty, knowing that rebuilding would take patience and perseverance. But for the first time in years, they were both willing to try. And as they ventured forward into the warmth of the setting sun, Hana felt a sense of freedom. Perhaps love was not a cage, but a canvas on which they could create anew. Love can sometimes be the most isolating trap of them all. 7 years into her marriage to Kang Junho, Seo Hana stood at the threshold of a stark reality she had tried to ignore. The once vibrant dreams of love and connection had withered amidst cold indifference, leaving her feeling hollow in the expansive home filled with designer furniture and empty echoes. Each smile she offered him faltered like the flickering lights in their high-rise apartment. The bustling city below thrummed with life, yet she remained an unseen ghost drifting through their shared space. The mornings were a ritual of silence. She would prepare breakfast while Junho rushed through his routine, rarely sparing more than a passing glance. It was as if they occupied different worlds, her existence fading into the background of his ambition. The lavish meals she prepared often went untouched, leftovers cluttering the fridge as reminders of her efforts. Hana began to feel less like a wife and more like a prop in a play, orchestrated by someone who had long forgotten the script. Each day became a reflection of the last. Wake up, eat, clean, repeat. But joy eluded her like a distant shore. As the yearning for emotional connection deepened into despair, Hana found solace in her garden. Tending to the vibrant flowers became her escape, a small rebellion against the stifling monotony at home. She immersed herself in nurturing life, coaxing blossoms from the soil with the gentle touch she longed to receive. When she would invite Junho to join her, hoping to share a fleeting moment of beauty, he often declined, too absorbed in his phone or buried in work. She began scripting narratives in her mind, stories where he would walk out to meet her halfway, where they would laugh and share their dreams, even as the reality taught her that hope was a luxury. Then one evening, as she harvested blossoms to bring into their home, Hana received a phone call that would disrupt her quiet suffering. It was her younger sister, Sujin, full of laughter and a lightness that seemed foreign to Hana. "I'm getting married, Unnie. I want you to be my maid of honor." The exhilaration in her sister's voice sparked something deep within Hana, both joy for Sujin and a painful reminder of her own boundless emptiness. Trying to conceal her trembling voice, she forced a smile. "That sounds amazing, Jin. I'll be there." Attending the wedding brought Hana face to face with the stark contrast to her own life. Laughter and love suffused the air, and as she watched her sister glide down the aisle, she found herself questioning her own worth. Was she doomed to a life of quiet desperation? Filling the plates with food for a joyous feast, she felt more alone than ever, and every cheerful toast deepened the ache in her heart. Days merged into nights, and beneath the weight of repeated heartache, a new resolve began to surface. The thought of merely existing in the shadows of Junho's ambitions was no longer acceptable. She wanted more love, more recognition, more life. The decision had been brewing like the flowers pushing through the frozen earth, and Hana felt it was finally time to bloom. One evening, when they returned home from another one of Junho's corporate functions, Hana confronted him in the living room, the tension thick enough to cut. "Junho, we need to talk," she said, her voice a mixture of determination and vulnerability. He raised an eyebrow, surprised but guarded. "What is it, Hana?" His eyes darted towards his phone, but the pleading in her gaze held him in place. "I can't keep living like this," she declared, her heart racing as she spoke. "I love you, but I can't be just a shadow anymore. I'm tired of pretending that everything is okay when it isn't. I need you to see me." For a moment, silence enveloped them, thick with unspoken words. Junho's face transformed, a flicker of realization passing through his usually stoic demeanor. "What do you mean?" Hana took a deep breath, summoning courage. "I feel invisible. This marriage feels like a contract, not a partnership. I need to know that I matter to you." The weight of her words hung in the air, twisting like the petals of a flower caught in a storm. Junho, for the first time in years, seemed to truly process what she was saying. Memories of laughter and warmth from their earlier days flooded back, but they felt so far removed from the reality they lived now. The flicker of understanding slowly igniting in his eyes plunged him into introspection. "Have I really been that indifferent?" he muttered, his voice softening with vulnerability. "Hana, I never wanted that for us. I've been so focused on work that—" His voice faltered, shame washing over him. "Apart from being your wife, I want to be your partner." A tear slipped from her eye, crashing against the still silent air. "I can't do this alone anymore." In that moment, everything shifted. Junho seemed to awaken from a fog, seeing not just a wife but a woman fighting for her place in the world. The stark reality of his abandonment filled him with remorse. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I've pushed you away when all you wanted was to be with me." Their discussion turned into a cathartic confrontation, their fears and regrets spilling out like untended weeds in the garden. The vulnerability created a bittersweet bond, a fragile truce. Though everything would not magically resolve overnight, Hana felt a sense of solidarity. He finally saw her, and she would no longer let their love wither without a fight. As days turned to weeks, moments of struggle and growth accompanied them, both navigating their emotional landscape with care. Over coffee in the kitchen, they began talking about their days. Laughter gradually returned like the promise of sunlight after a storm. While they had a long road ahead, Hana felt the first signs of hope blossom in her heart. The journey would demand understanding and patience, but now they walked side by side, ready to rediscover the love that had once promised so much. And with it came the realization that they could still create a relationship that brought joy back into their lives, not just as a couple, but as two individuals willing to embrace the imperfections they each carried. It's terrifying to realize that love can turn into a ghost, haunting your life. As Seo Hana sat in their spacious living room, the weight of her decision pinched at her heart, churned in her stomach, and clouded her thoughts. 7 long years had passed since she had stepped into the role of Junho's devoted wife, her dreams of a loving partnership slowly suffocated by a blinding indifference. The once warm spark of hope that lit her path had grown dim, flickering under the harsh light of reality. She had fought for connection, but felt she had become an invisible figure in her own life. The lavish apartment around her, filled with fine art and exquisite furniture, felt more like a prison than a home. Hana gazed out the floor-to-ceiling window, the city's vibrant pulse below contrasting sharply with the stillness that enveloped her heart. The silence consumed her. She had been preparing to voice what she could no longer ignore. The thought of asking for a divorce had tangled her emotions into a tight knot of anxiety and sorrow. Yet staying in a loveless marriage seemed more unbearable than the act of leaving. As the hour of confrontation approached, her breaths came hesitantly, and her palms grew clammy. Each tick of the clock echoed like a drum, building the tension that clawed at her resolve. Would Junho react with anger or sadness? Would this finally ignite the passion she had sought for so long? In the depths of her mind, she knew none of that mattered. She could no longer drown in his apathy. Summoning every ounce of courage, she walked toward the study where Junho often buried himself in work, letting the heaviness of her heart guide her steps. Junho looked up from his laptop, surprise etched on his handsome features as he set aside the glowing screen. "Hana, is something wrong?" The concern in his voice momentarily caught her off guard, yet it was fleeting. She shook her head, steeling herself until the words came tumbling out, raw and unpolished. "I want a divorce." His expression shifted. Instead of outrage or grief, a chilling indifference washed over his face. "Oh, okay." The simplicity of his response struck Hana like a blow. In that moment, with those 2 brief words, the cold truth settled over her. She had been nothing more than a phantom for him, a life lived without the substance of connection. Feeling lost and abandoned, she faltered, grappling with a mix of disbelief and sorrow. "That's it? You're okay with it?" Her voice wavered, demanding acknowledgement, a hint of emotion, something to express that their years together meant more than casual acceptance. But Junho merely shrugged, gaze drifting back to the screen. "I guess we both knew this was coming." Hana felt her heart sink. This was not the confrontation she had envisioned. There were no tears, no desperate pleas. Instead, the emptiness of their bond loomed larger than ever, echoing through the confines of the room. How had it come to this? Had her presence in his life truly meant so little? The realization stung sharply, igniting a fire of self-doubt that spurred within her. She had given her all, unsolicited affection, companionship, and loyalty, yet here she stood, feeling more like a shadow than a wife. With a sigh that exhaled her buried frustrations, she took a step back, forcing herself to leave the room, to reclaim the space where she had once sought solace. Each step felt foreign, yet each was laced with purpose. "I can no longer be your ghost, Junho," she whispered, turning her back on the man who had arrived at apathetic acceptance. The strength to move was a flicker she hadn't realized she still possessed. Days turned into weeks as Hana forged a path away from the remnants of their shared life. The divorce proceedings were only a formality, but the emotional journey became a crucible of rediscovery. With her sister's help, she explored art classes, immersing herself in the vibrant world of colors and shapes, where every stroke mirrored her struggle to reclaim her identity. Through laughter and shared experiences, she found herself reborn, not just as Junho's wife, but as Seo Hana, the woman she had been before obligations suffocated her dreams. In the quiet moments of reflection, she acknowledged the scars left by her marriage, but now they were a part of her healing. Relatively easy to dismiss the sadness, she recognized the depth of her own strength. Real love meant feeling seen, unrestrained by walls crafted from pain, and she found herself embracing the possibilities that awaited her, the invigorating thrill of freedom. One fateful afternoon, the door swung open to a familiar face. Junho stood there, cheeks flushed from the cool evening air. His eyes darted, filled with a mix of regret and yearning as he hesitated at the threshold of her new life. Hana's heart quickened. She wondered what had driven him back. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice low and earnest, "about us. I know I pushed you away, and I don't blame you for leaving." Hana felt a rush of conflicting emotions. The bitterness of betrayal and the warmth of hope mingled like the colors on her palette. Yet she understood this would not define her anymore. She had risen beyond the depths of despair. "I appreciate you coming, Junho, but I can't go back to the way things were. I deserve more." Hearing those words brought clarity to her path. This time, she would not be tethered by fear or expectation. While they both stood on the edge of something new, each moment echoed with the promise that growth comes, whether together or apart. As he stepped back, a newfound respect shone in his eyes. Hana knew they had both made their choices. The road ahead was uncertain, but no longer would she fade into the background of someone else's life. They both had room to grow, she toward her own potential, and he toward learning what it means to cherish. As she turned away, ready to embrace this new chapter, hope bloomed once more, genuine and alive, anticipating the life she would now carve out just for herself. Losing someone you love can turn your entire world upside down. Kang Junho watched in stunned silence as Hana walked out the door, her silhouette fading against the warm glow of the hallway lights. Initially, he felt nothing, just the routine continuation of his day overshadowed by work and ambition. But the moment she left, an unsettling emptiness began to seep into the corners of their lavish apartment, chilling the air where her laughter used to fill the space. Days turned into oppressive weeks for Junho. The kitchen, once alive with shared meals and whispers of dreams, descended into a sterile silence, reminding him of everything he had taken for granted. He wandered from room to room, feeling like a stranger in his own home. With the absence of Hana, the echoes of empty conversations haunted him, and he found himself restless, clutching at the remnants of a life once filled with warmth. Every morning he'd awaken early, expecting to hear her light footsteps as she gathered the ingredients for breakfast. Instead, he was met with the cold hum of the refrigerator, the gentle ticking of the clock growing louder with each passing second. With each solitary meal, he couldn't escape his own thoughts. The reflection in the plate was a lonely one, and the culinary masterpieces he had taken for granted now tasted bland and uninviting. Junho had always believed in the pursuit of power, but now he grappled with the profound loneliness that filled the void she had left behind. As he stared out at the bustling cityscape beneath their high-rise, Junho began to confront the stark reality of his choices. It was ironic, he mused, how he had dedicated his life to climbing the ladder of success while neglecting the most pressing relationship that demanded his attention. Memories of Hana flooded back, scenes he had filed away in the depths of his mind. The way she would smile over breakfast, her eyes sparkling with ambition and kindness, the laughter they had shared during long evenings. Such moments now seemed like fragments of a dream he could barely recall. One evening, as he sifted through a pile of mail, an unassuming envelope caught his eye. Hana's handwriting was unmistakable. His heart raced as he tore it open, desperate for any sign of her thoughts. Inside was a note that read, "I've enlisted myself in a community arts program. I hope to re-find who I am." Every word felt like a dagger digging deeper into the cavity of his chest. They had talked about her passions, her dreams, the art she loved to create, but he had overlooked them time and again. Even now, her yearning for self-discovery pierced his heart, a painful reminder that her dreams deserved to flourish beyond the confines of their marriage. Fueled by a mixture of regret and a lingering sense of hope, Junho decided to visit the local art center, drawn by its vibrant colors and the promise of life that Hana sought after. As he entered, he was engulfed by a cacophony of laughter and creativity. Children ran excitedly between easels, paint-splattered hands raised high in excitement, and the sight momentarily took him aback. In that lively chaos, he spotted Hana at a distance, a radiant figure surrounded by kids. The way she engaged with them, her hands guiding little ones as they painted vivid landscapes, was a sight that tugged at every thread of his heart. For the first time, he felt an inkling of understanding wash over him. Hana had been a part of him, not merely as a spouse, but as a vibrant soul who colored his life with joy. He hesitated, contemplating whether to approach her. Suddenly, the chime of laughter erupted nearby, and one of the children slipped, tumbling into Hana's arms. She scooped the little one up effortlessly, soothing the child with warmth, and in that instant, Junho saw the love she had poured into their relationship, even when he had been blind to it. Steeling himself, he approached her, hesitation replaced by determination. "Hana," he began, his voice almost lost amid the energetic chatter around them. She turned, her eyes widening in surprise, the sparkle of her spirit briefly dimming in uncertainty. "Junho, what are you doing here?" I came to see you," he stammered, heart pounding. "I miss you. I've realized what I've lost, and I don't think I can fix it without you." A flicker of deep emotion crossed her face, and for a moment, the sparkle returned to her eyes. "You're here, but what do you really want?" The weight of his realization hit him like a wave. This was not just about salvaging a marriage. "I want to understand you better, to appreciate what you bring to my life. I can't pretend I haven't taken you for granted anymore." Hana surveyed him thoughtfully, her lips pressed together, the hope mingling with caution. "What does that mean for us, Junho? It's been a long journey, and I'm not sure if you truly know what it means to share a life." He took a step closer, the noise of the bustling space fading into the background. "I want to learn. I want to support you in pursuing your dreams, and I want you to tell me when I'm failing you again." Her gaze softened, weighing the sincerity in his words. "It will take time," she replied quietly, the uncertainty still lingering. "I'm willing to fight for that time. Please, just give me a chance to show you I can change." As she considered him, Junho felt hopeful for the first time since her departure. Though they had weathered storms of strife, perhaps they could still find a way to rediscover the colors they had both lost along the way. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with the need for growth and forgiveness, but it was a journey he was ready to embrace. Leaving the art center, hand in hand, they stepped out into the vibrant streets, filled with the promise of dawn. They knew the road would be imperfect, fraught with challenges and old scars, but together they were willing to take the first steps toward building a new canvas for their lives, one filled with layers of understanding, passion, and love reborn. Regret is a silent thief, stealthily robbing the heart of joy. Kang Junho sat alone in his sleek, contemporary penthouse, the city skyline twinkling with life outside his glass walls, yet he felt an overwhelming void within. The laughter of his wife, Hana, had once filled this space, a symphony of warmth and affection he now painfully recalled, but which he had taken for granted. Emptiness, once a comfortable cloak he wrapped around himself, felt more like a weighty anchor, dragging him deep into despair. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to dwell on the memories articulately etched in his mind. Hana's bright smile, the way her eyes crinkled in delight when he surprised her with a simple dinner, and her melodious laughter that once danced through the air now echoed like a ghost haunting the corridors. The weight of realization crashed over him. Her absence was not merely a physical void, but the loss of companionship, his partner, his confidant, who had always offered him a safe harbor amid life's chaos. In those quiet moments, a nagging question stirred within him. How had he allowed himself to become so cold? Chasing success had wheeled him away from the affection he once felt, and in chasing his dreams, he had become a figment of his own desires, creating a facade of strength that had imprisoned him rather than liberated him. His heart ached, and the familiar hardness he wore as armor began to crack under the pressure of his introspection. Junho's routine became a monotonous cycle. Each day unfolded the same way. He would wake up early, pour himself a cup of the rich coffee Hana had custom-made just for him, and yet each sip tasted bitter without her presence to share it with. After work, he returned home to an eerily still house that once flourished with laughter. The nights felt interminable, stretching out in silence. He would often find himself staring at the photographs of happier days, moments frozen in time where all was well. One evening, while rifling through a box of Hannah's sketches cluttered in the corner of their living room, an old sketch of her smiling under a cherry blossom tree caught his eye. He was struck by how alive she looked, how visceral her joy was in that moment. A heavy pang of sorrow gripped him as he realized he had never thought to ask her about her dreams or aspirations. He had dismissed her artistic side as frivolous, yet it had been the very thing that brought her alive. Almost instinctively, he picked up a pen and smoothed out a fresh piece of paper, attempting to mimic her style, but the lines he drew were shaky and frail. Just when he thought he could bury his pain in work, his phone vibrated violently against the coffee table, pulling him out of the fog of his memories. A text flashed on the screen, a photo from Hannah of her at an art gallery with her friends. She looked radiant, lost in a world of color and creation, oblivious to the ache twisting in his chest. "Why didn't I see this side of you?" he whispered to the empty room. At that moment, despair transformed into a flicker of determination. He recognized that he had to fight for a chance to understand the woman he had pushed away. With newfound resolve, Junho decided to reach out, using the same art gallery as his goal. He remembered the address, though hesitancy danced on his fingertips. Every soldier needs a strategy, and as he drove through the city, he questioned whether he could even approach her after what had transpired between them. He felt like an intruder in her new life, but he pushed through. Walking into the gallery, he was engulfed in color and emotion, a world of creativity where Hannah thrived. The air buzzed with conversations filled with excitement, and while each brushstroke adorned the walls, his heart raced, knowing that she was amid this vibrant energy. In a secluded corner, he finally spotted her, thoroughly engaged in conversation with an artist, her face illuminated as she brushed aside strands of hair. "Hannah," he called, hesitation dripping from his lips. She turned, shock flooding her features before morphing into uncertainty. For a long moment, their eyes locked, and the distance that had once felt insurmountable shrank as he approached. "Junho," she said quietly, the warmth of her voice sparking something deep within him. "What are you doing here?" "I came to find you," he said, struggling to maintain eye contact. "I realize now how much I've neglected you, how I pushed you away without meaning to. I saw your art, and I want you to share this world with me, the world I never bothered to explore." Hannah's gaze faltered, her resolve firm but vulnerable. "Why now, after all this time?" "Because I see you now, Hannah, not just as my wife, but as the incredible person you are, and I want to understand that side of you, your dreams, your passions. I've made mistakes, but I'm willing to change." As the weight of his words settled, a silence enveloped them, filled with the echo of all that had transpired. Much hung in the balance, and Hannah found herself wrestling with emotions she had locked away. "It's not that easy, Junho. You shattered my trust." "We've both changed." "I know," he replied earnestly. "But I'm here hoping you'll give me a chance to prove to you that I can be better." The tension hung thick in the air, but the look in her eyes softened. "I just don't want to go back to what it was. If we're going to move forward, it needs to be different." "I don't want to go back either. I want to build something new," he affirmed, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement tingle in the air between them. Old hurts were still present, but the beginnings of hope flickered at the edge. In that gallery, amid bursts of vivid color, Junho realized something profound. It was not the fear of losing her that drove him, but the aspiration to nurture a new reality where they could both flourish, to be partners in this journey, no longer ghosting past each other through life. Two artists, perhaps imperfectly, still capable of creating something beautiful. As the two slowly began to unravel the tightly wound knot of their past, the first brushstrokes of their renewed connection formed the whispered promise of a vibrant future, together, a blank canvas awaiting the colors of their lives. Love can sometimes be the hardest lesson learned too late. As the sun began to rise over the city, casting a soft golden hue through the window, Kang Junho awoke to the sound of silence. The once familiar warmth of his home now felt cold and hollow, devoid of life. Since Hana had left, he was forced to confront the emotional chasm that yawned before him, a yawning void where laughter and joy used to reside. Each day passed like the last, a monotonous rhythm that only highlighted what was missing from his life. The memories of their time together flooded his mind, her laughter bursting through the air like music, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about the art she loved. All those moments, each softly beautiful, had been buried beneath layers of pride and ambition he had built around himself. It was a fortress he thought would protect him, but the walls were now closing in, leaving him gasping for the very connection he had taken for granted. With the realization that he loved Hana, truly loved her, came a suffocating regret that made him question everything he had ever known. Struggling with the truth of his feelings, Junho embarked on a frantic journey to reclaim what he had lost. He wandered the streets they used to explore together, searching for insight into her world, the vibrant life he had once ignored. Every corner he turned held echoes of her presence, and as he moved through the familiar landscapes, he began to notice the subtleties he had overlooked. The art gallery where she once blossomed, the small cafe that served her favorite pastries, each place a reminder of his neglect. One afternoon, he found himself in that very cafe, its aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. He ordered what she used to love, the delicate balance of flavors that reminded him of the warmth they had shared. As he sat alone, the weight of her absence bore down on him fiercely. The sight of her empty chair across the table felt like a ghost, taunting him with the potential of their once shared dreams. He remembered her aspirations, the way she spoke so passionately about art and expression, the love she had for painting which he had dismissed as a hobby. The artist in her had always deserved recognition, and yet all he had given was neglect. Determined to make amends, Junho began to spend time in art studios and workshops, immersing himself in the world that had once come so easily to Hana. He learned about colors, compositions, and the language of creativity, all while grappling with his own insecurities. Each painting he attempted was a cathartic release, an outlet for the emotions he struggled to articulate. He painted with trembling hands, pouring his heart into each stroke, finding solace in the act of creation. Through this honest expression, he slowly chipped away at the callousness that had defined him for so long. As he delved deeper into this newfound passion, he finally found the strength to reach out to Hana. With a combination of hope and fear swirling within him, he typed a message to her, the pixels forming the connection he wished could bridge the chasm between them. "Can we talk?" he texted, his heart racing as the words felt both exhilarating and terrifying. After a day that stretched into eternity, her reply came as a small blip of hope against the bleakness of his existence. "Okay. Where?" They decided to meet at the same art gallery where so many memories lingered. The site buzzed with energy as Junho stood nervously by the entrance. The vibrant colors around him swelled with life and possibility. Hana arrived, her presence radiating the same light he had once taken for granted. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. He caught the fleeting mixture of surprise and wariness in her gaze. "Junho," she began, her voice steady yet layered with caution. "Why did you want to meet?" Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the whirlwind of emotions swirling around them. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I know I failed you, Hana. I lost sight of what mattered when I became too wrapped up in work. You were my anchor, and I let go." Hana's features softened, revealing the vulnerability beneath her cautious demeanor. "It devastated me when you chose your career over us. I felt invisible," she confessed, the weight of unspoken words trembling in her voice. "I see that now," Junho replied, willing her to understand the depths of his remorse. "I've started painting again. I want to embrace the creative world you love. I want to understand you. to truly see you." As he spoke, he shared stories of the journeys he had undertaken, the struggles of his own insecurities amidst the canvas of colors. He offered her his sketches, evidence of his attempts to forge a connection with the world she held dear. Hana studied his artwork, emotions flickering across her face, from hurt to contemplation. The vulnerability she saw reminded her of how he once cherished every part of her soul. "You're trying," she acknowledged, her voice barely above a whisper. "But is it enough?" In that moment, Junho realized it wasn't merely about apologizing or claiming redemption. It was about understanding the intricate tapestry of their lives together, weaving it anew with threads of mutual respect, love, and support. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild what we lost," he stated with conviction. The air filled with tension, a delicate balance between hope and uncertainty. "Trust doesn't return overnight," Hana warned, though softness tinged her tone, as if allowing a flicker of hope into her heart. "I know," he replied, feeling the weight of their history. "But I'm here, and I won't stop trying." As the evening darkened outside, the gallery glowed with lights, casting a warm embrace around them. While they stood amid the vibrant colors, the past remained a fragile thread between them. But the promise of growth illuminated the path forward. They both knew they had mountains to climb and wounds to heal, but the first step lay in acknowledging their flaws and embarking together on a new journey. Moments stretched, and as uncertainty embraced them, they took the first tentative steps toward rekindling the connection they once desperately cherished. With a shared resolve, they faced what lay ahead, each newly painted stroke of their lives a testament to rediscovered love, slowly transforming into a canvas of possibilities. Freedom can be the fiercest form of rebellion. After leaving behind the echoes of her failed marriage, Seo Hana stepped into a world where she could rediscover herself, pulling away from the shadows that had dominated her existence for too long. The vibrant colors of city life washed over her like a refreshing tide, invigorating her spirit and reigniting the spark that had flickered out under the weight of indifference. Surrounded by supportive friends who rallied around her, Hana began to piece together the fragments of her life, embracing the strength within her she had once overlooked. In the weeks following her departure, Hana found solace in the company of her closest friends, Na Young, a fiercely driven entrepreneur, and Jisoo, a free-spirited artist. The trio often gathered in quaint cafes filled with eclectic art and the aroma of fresh coffee, sharing stories, laughter, and dreams that had once been buried. With each moment spent in their presence, she learned to open up about her feelings, banishing the shame and self-doubt that had lingered like a fog in her mind. "Let's conquer a painting class next weekend," Na Young suggested one morning, excitement bubbling in her voice. For a fleeting moment Hana hesitated, the pang of insecurity tugging at her resolve, but the vibrant energy around her pushed her to agree. "Okay, let's do it." As she stood beside Na Young and Jisoo in the studio, a wave of exhilaration coursed through her. They blended colors, smeared paint onto canvases, and laughed at their messy attempts to create art. Hana realized that she didn't need to hide behind anyone anymore. She could be unapologetically herself. Each brushstroke carved out a new space for healing in her heart. Through their shared creativity, she uncovered layers of resilience and passion that had long been dormant. But the road to self-discovery was not without its struggles. There were moments when doubt crept back in, especially during quiet evenings spent alone, where the silence echoed Junho's absence. Memories would surface uninvited, reminding her of the love she had yearned for but never received. "Am I deserving of joy?" she would whisper to herself, battling the remnants of those feelings. One night, as she sat on her balcony watching the stars flicker overhead, she recalled a night years ago when Junho had promised to always be by her side. His indifference replayed like a haunting refrain. Yet as the tears fell, she also felt a shift within her, a flicker of resilience igniting as she gazed at her favorite constellation. "I refuse to let the past define me," she declared softly, a newfound determination solidifying in her heart. At her job, Hana also found encouragement. Returning to her old position as a marketing consultant, she began volunteering for new projects, engaging with colleagues and energizing collaborative efforts. Her confidence soared as she contributed ideas that were embraced with enthusiasm. With every meeting, Hana felt her self-worth creep higher, her voice finally having a chance to be heard. Yet not everything unfolded smoothly. One afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived at the office. Junho. Clad in an expensive suit, he wove through the bustling space until he reached her desk. The moment their eyes met, the office seemed to hold its breath. "Hana," he began, his voice a mixture of anxiousness and determination. "I've been trying to reach you. Can we talk?" Her heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions crashing against one another. "What do you want, Junho?" she asked, her tone steady despite the turmoil brewing inside. "I've realized what I lost," he confessed, searching her eyes. "I'm not asking for a second chance, just a moment to explain. I've changed." She studied him, recalling the man she had loved and helped shape. "Changed? After all that's happened? What makes you think I'd believe you? I know I hurt you." "I'm not asking you to erase that," he pressed, his sincerity washing over her. "I've started painting again, trying to embrace what you once loved. I want to understand you, to support you in life, if you'll let me." Hana's breath caught in her throat. This was the apology she had yearned for, the acknowledgement of her absence that she had never received. Still, uncertainty bubbled beneath her surface. "It's not that simple," she responded, each word weighed down by the memories of her pain. "You're not the only one who has changed." But there was something earnest about his eyes, a flicker of hope that ignited within her. "I know I have a lot to prove," Junho continued, desperation in his voice. "I'm willing to fight for a chance, for you to see that I can be better." The air buzzed with tension as memories of their past swirled in her mind. How could she forgive him? How could she trust again? Yet deep down, she felt her heart soften, just slightly. Tensions waged war within her. Part of her longed for the connection they once shared, while the other screamed for her to prioritize her newfound freedom. "I need time," she finally said, surprised at the steadiness of her voice. "I'll take all the time you need. Just know that you're worth fighting for," he responded, sincerity lacing his words. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Hana at a crossroad. As she stood watching him leave, she felt a mix of confusion and relief coiling within her. The past was still a part of her, but now it served as a reminder of how far she had come. Days turned into weeks, and she found solace in nurturing both her relationships with supportive friends and potentially rebuilding her connection with Junho. Each moment spent reclaiming joy, whether through painting or laughter shared with friends, fostered a strength she had never known. While part of her still questioned the road ahead, another part embraced the uncertainty and potential for growth. Life, she realized, was not defined by the shadows cast by lost love, but rather by the vibrant colors she chose to create in her own canvas. Embracing her newfound independence, Hana was determined to navigate the complexities of her emotions, pursuing happiness while allowing space for the possibility of reconnection, a journey filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of rediscovery. Fate has a way of weaving paths together when least expected. The evening air was electric with excitement as guests chatted, and the buzz of cultured conversation filled the newly opened art gallery. Junho stood at the entrance, a glass of red wine in hand, heart pounding in rhythm with the music that floated through the air. He had spent years buried in work, but tonight felt different. Tonight he was here to reconnect with a piece of his past he could no longer ignore. As he stepped further inside, the crowd swirled around him, vibrant art adorning the walls, concealing emotions he was only beginning to understand. When he finally spotted her, Hana, standing beside a brilliant painting that radiated warmth, the world around him blurred. She was a vision of unrestrained elegance, her laughter mingling with the voices of others, her eyes sparkling with creativity and independence he had once overlooked. Memories of their life together flooded him, and for a moment, he felt ungrounded. Jun-ho? Hana's voice reached him, unclear at first, as if she had summoned him from a dream. As he approached, an unexpected vulnerability surged through him, intertwining with old feelings long buried beneath layers of regret. He stopped before her, nearly stumbling over the words threatening to spill out. "Hana," he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. The warmth he had once taken for granted was now an ache in his chest. She narrowed her eyes, caught between surprise and caution. "What are you doing here?" The coolness in her tone reminded him that their past still loomed heavy above them like a storm cloud. "I wanted to see you. I saw the gallery opening and I had to come." Jun-ho felt the words tumble awkwardly from his lips as he wrestled with a tide of emotions. How could he convey the depths of his remorse? Each heartbeat felt like a reminder of the time he'd lost. Hana crossed her arms, scrutinizing him, reminding him of the guarded walls she had built. "You have a peculiar way of showing it," she replied, her voice steady as if she were controlling a delicate dance. "I know I've made mistakes," he admitted, his heart thundering in his veins. The memories of neglect and indifference gnawed at him. "I've realized that I overlooked you, took you for granted. I'm still trying to understand what that means for me and for us." Her expression softened for a fraction of a second before the walls returned, drawing the lines of disbelief across her features. "Do you know how long I waited for you to see me?" Hana's voice trembled slightly, echoing the vulnerabilities he had seen in her before. "You only cared about your work." "I've been working on myself, Hana," he explained, urgency and rawness threading through his words. "This past year has shown me that ambition doesn't have to come at the cost of love. You deserve more than just a partner consumed by his job. I've started painting again, for you, for what I've lost." He gestured toward the vibrant art around them, his heart racing at the thought that maybe they could rebuild what had been severed. "Painting?" she echoed, disbelief mingled with intrigue. But as she gazed into his eyes, he could sense a flicker of interest, perhaps even hope. "You're just a businessman. How do I know this isn't just another phase? I'm asking you to give me a chance, to let me show you who I am now," Jun-ho implored, stepping closer, voice low, genuine. "I don't want you to remain in my past. You deserve a future filled with joy, and I want to be part of that, if you can let me." His words hung in the air between them, charged with vulnerability and sincerity. Hana's heart raced. The Jun-ho she had known still cast shadows of doubt, yet the man before her bore the weight of transformation. Still, fear clawed at her insides. The memory of being invisible loomed like an unwelcome companion. "Do you really think that one conversation can erase the years I spent feeling unvalued?" Her voice softened but remained steadfast. "No, it can't," he replied earnestly. "And I know it's going to take time. But I won't stop trying, Hana. I want to earn your trust back, piece by piece. Please say you'll at least consider it." As they stood in that beautiful gallery, surrounded by art that depicted every shade of human emotion, Jun-ho felt the tension thickening the air. Hana, too, was caught at a crossroads. Could she dare to step forward into uncertainty, fueled by the hope of rekindling a connection that once brought them both so much light? The crowd swirled around them as moments passed like gentle waves, swaying them closer to a decision neither could ignore. Finally, an understanding flickered in her eyes. "I don't know if I can trust you yet, Jun-ho, but I'm willing to hear you out. Just know, this path won't be easy." "I understand," he replied, feeling a rush of relief wash over him, but also a weight of responsibility resettling firmly on his shoulders. "I'm here for it all. I'll wait for as long as it takes." As they moved deeper into the gallery, a new chapter began to unfurl. Both of them entangled in emotions long buried. They stepped forward into the unknown, where shadows began to dissolve in the warmth of rekindled connection, painting the canvas of their lives with the promise of what could yet be. If love can be a battlefield, then trust is the most treacherous terrain. Hana stood before a vibrant canvas at the art gallery, its colors swirling together in a chaotic yet beautiful dance, echoing the turmoil within her heart. After years of feeling lost, she had finally found her footing, embracing her independence and the support of friends who reminded her of the strength she possessed. And yet, here stood Kang Joon-ho, the man who had once shattered her heart, intent on finding a way back into her life. His presence set off a tangled web of emotions, forcing her to confront the painful remnants of their past. "Please, Hana, just let me explain," Joon-ho said, his voice trembling with earnestness as he stepped closer. She could see the vulnerability etched on his face, the desperation to bridge the chasm between them. Yet for every flicker of longing that danced in his eyes, memories of neglect pulled her back. Right when she had hoped he would change, she was still the girl invisible to the man she once loved. "Why now?" Hana asked, crossing her arms defensively. "You had all those years to acknowledge me, to show you cared." He took a deep breath, his composure wavering under the weight of his regret. "I know I messed up. I was blinded by ambition, and I took for granted the love you offered. But I've changed. I've started painting again, trying to understand the artist in you. I want the chance to understand us again," he said, gesturing toward the canvas that bore the marks of countless emotions, just as she had evolved through her pain. As the crowd ebbed and flowed around them, Hana felt the temperature of their interaction rise. She wanted to believe him, to feel the warmth of their past, but the scars were still fresh. Can I trust him again? Her mind buzzed with questions, uncertainties tearing at the edges of her resolve. Every word he spoke resonated with a familiarity that warmed her heart, yet doubt shadowed her thoughts. Was this merely a fleeting moment of regret on his part, or could he decidedly change? She looked into his eyes, searching for signs of sincerity amidst the layers of his long-standing persona. "You can't expect one conversation to mend everything, Joon-ho. I have to protect myself this time. It's not easy for me to just forget. You hurt me deeply." A ripple of hurt flickered across his face. "I don't want you to forget, Hana. I want you to remember the good things, the laughter, and the love we shared." His voice grew softer, tinged with longing. "You used to inspire me. I miss who we were, and I miss you." Every beat of her heart ached as she fought against the tide of memories that surged around her. Here was the Joon-ho she had yearned to see, yet she couldn't shake the memories of his indifference. "You just walked away," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, "and I was left to pick up the pieces alone." "I can't change what I did," he said, vulnerability cracking through his usual confidence. "But I'll fight to earn back your trust. I will be here, waiting for whatever you decide, because you are worth it, Hana." His admission hung in the air, heavy with the gravity of their shared history. In that moment of connection, something inside her shifted, fluttering dangerously between hope and fear. Would she allow him back into her life? As she wrestled with the decision, she had an unexpected realization. Their hearts had been intertwined through love and pain, both shaped by their experiences apart. It was no longer about dwelling in sorrow, but rather about finding strength within herself. Would she risk the chance to embrace the man who had once hurt her, or would she choose to continue her journey alone? "I need time, Joon-ho," she said slowly, her pulse quickening as her heart fought between two options. "Time to think about what I want. I can't just jump back into something that hurt me so deeply." Joon-ho nodded, understanding blooming in his eyes as he stepped back, allowing her to breathe. "Take all the time you need. Just promise me one thing. Don't close the door completely. I'll be right here, ready to wait." With that, Hana felt the storm within her begin to calm, the dichotomy of her feelings gently reconciling. She turned away from the bustling gallery, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. The world still felt uncertain, but she would step boldly into this new chapter, allowing her heart to mend while still guarding the pieces of herself that had once felt invisible. In the weeks following their encounter, Hana chose the path of self-exploration. Armed with the confidence she had developed, she delved deeper into her art. pouring her emotions onto canvas, creating vivid pieces that illustrated her journey. Each brushstroke helped her navigate her feelings, reminding her of her worth and the love she deserved. The nurturing support of her friends continued to remind her that she was not alone. And while she worked on healing, the thought of Junho lingered at the edges of her heart, a mixture of possibility and uncertainty. Days passed into weeks, and with time she knew the decision would reveal itself. Whether to embrace the renewed connection with him, or to continue forging her own path remained a choice only she could make. But one thing was certain: she had emerged stronger than before, armed with the lessons of the past and a heart open to possibilities. Whatever the outcome, she knew she was worthy of love, deserving of joy, and ready to embrace a future she would craft herself. The story was far from over. It was merely beginning anew. Faces can hide 1,000 stories, but emotions often betray the truth. Junho stood across from Hana, the gallery lights dancing in her eyes, illuminating the swirling emotions they both felt but had yet to express. He could sense the gravity of the moment. Her hesitation was palpable, like a fragile thread ready to snap. For so long, he had lived in a world uncomplicated by love. But now he was faced with the reality that he had taken her for granted. "I know I haven't been the man you needed, Hana," he began, his voice steadier than his heart. "I'm sincerely sorry for how I treated you. I want to be a better husband, the one you deserve. I've realized that what I sacrificed for my ambition was worth far less than the love we once shared. I'll earn your trust back, I promise." Each word stepped cautiously into the air between them, heavy with the unspoken history that lingered. Hana's heart raced, filled with both longing and doubt. She had once hoped for this moment, dreamed of his return. But now the warmth of his words sparked a flurry of memories that entwined with her unresolved pain. Could he change? Would this be genuine, or just another fleeting sentiment? The intricacies of their shared history danced in her mind, and with each pulse of uncertainty, her resolve began to solidify. "You can't just say those things and expect everything to go back to normal, Junho," she replied, her voice steady, yet tinged with vulnerability. "Of course not. I understand that it's going to take time, but I mean it. I miss you." His eyes held a deep yearning, revealing layers of regret he had never shown before. Yet standing before him, Hana felt the weight of her own self-worth. The years spent in the shadow of his ambition had taught her that she deserved more than empty promises. "Do you understand how it felt to be overlooked by you?" she challenged, each syllable edged with the memories of longing. "To stand beside someone who never truly saw me? I can't return to that place." Junho's expression shifted, the pain of her words sinking in deeper than he anticipated. "I can't erase your hurt, but I want to learn from it," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I see now that there's so much more to you than anyone understands, including me." In that moment, an unexpected glimmer danced in Hana's heart. Perhaps he had begun to truly reflect on his actions. But could she allow herself to believe in his change? The gap between them felt insurmountable, walls built over years of unfulfilled intimacy. She took a step back, unspooling her own tangled emotions, ready to protect herself from what could lead to another heartache. With a heavy breath, she paused, the gallery noise fading into the background. In that silence, she felt the gravity of her power. It was her decision, and she had earned the right to choose her future. Could love evolve from this tangled web of vulnerability? Or was she destined to forge ahead alone? "I won't shut the door completely, but I can't promise to jump back in." "I need more time, Junho," Hana finally responded, her words both hopeful and firm. "Just as you've changed, I've transformed into someone who values her own happiness above every unsaid promise. And right now, I need to focus on that." Junho's heart sank as the weight of her words settled on him. The harsh reality washed over him. He had lost not just a partner, but a piece of himself in Hana. "I understand. I'll be here, regardless of how long it takes," he said softly, grappling with the painful truth that he could no longer take her for granted. As they parted, Hana felt a surge of strength. She was leaving behind the familiar pain, but embracing the promise of self-discovery, a new path illuminated by her own resilience. Within the delicate balance of hope and uncertainty, she understood that some wounds required time to heal, and that true love meant recognizing her own worth first. Days turned into weeks, and Hana began to weave a life rich with artistry and friendship. Supported by her close-knit circle, she embraced her passions while allowing room for self-reflection. Every brushstroke on the canvas was a testament to her journey of healing, and slowly the spaces once filled with doubt transformed into areas of newfound confidence. Meanwhile, Junho too navigated a path of growth. He threw himself into rediscovering the depths of love, attending to his own flaws, and patiently awaiting Hana's decision. While he yearned for a second chance, he knew that the respect he had earned through change would go far beyond simple words. In the shared understanding of their struggles, both Hana and Junho learned that love has its complexities, but also its beauty. With time, patience, and an unwavering commitment to grow, perhaps they might find their way back to each other, not as they were before, but as two stronger souls ready to create a new resonance together. As Hana dipped her brush into a vibrant hue, she smiled, thinking of the possibilities ahead. The future, though uncertain, was filled with promise, and she was ready to step boldly into it. The canvas of her life awaited, and it was hers to paint anew. Sometimes the hardest choice is the one that sets you free. Under the radiant lights of the art gallery, Hana stood at a crossroads of emotion, her heart pounding in her chest as she faced Junho. The vibrant paintings around them reflected a world full of potential, yet, within her, a storm was brewing. Their recent conversation had opened old wounds and exposed the fragility of their reconnected bond. "I've missed you so much, Hana," Junho said earnestly, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with regret. "I want a chance to show you how much you mean to me." The desire in his eyes was palpable, yet the weight of their history loomed large. Hana's heart fluttered at his words, but it also ached with memories of neglect and betrayal. Each promise he had made in the past echoed with familiar hesitance. "You say that now, but can I trust that it's not just a fleeting moment of regret?" she challenged, her voice steady despite the turmoil beneath the surface. The shadows of doubt loomed, reminding her of the countless nights spent feeling invisible in his world. Silence suffused the air, punctuated only by the distant laughter of guests. Junho, heart racing, felt the palpable tension stretch between them. "I know I have to earn your trust back. I understand that nothing can change overnight, but I'm committed to showing you that I can be there for you this time, in all the ways I failed before." Hana's mind raced, memories colliding with the weight of his longing. The sadness of their past dulled the vibrancy of that night, yet she found herself unable to turn away from him. The intensity of his gaze hinted at a transformation she had longed for, yet the reality of their relationship bore scars too deep to overlook. Can love really heal what's been broken? She wondered aloud, a part of her yearning to believe his sincerity. Each word hung heavy with the complexity of their history. The love she once craved was mingled with fear of returning to the pain. Junho took a step closer, vulnerability etching every line of his features. "I won't claim to have the answers. All I know is that I want you in my life again, and I'm ready to fight for that." He searched her face, hoping to catch a glimpse of the hope she had locked away. With a deep breath, Hana turned her gaze to the artwork surrounding them. The colors bled into one another in a beautiful chaos, mirroring her own swirling emotions. The gallery, filled with artistically rendered interpretations of love and loss, reflected both their journeys. "You've had your chance, Junho. I don't want to go back to being someone's afterthought," she finally said, her voice quaking between strength and fear. Their eyes locked, emotions thrumming between them like a taut string ready to snap. "I can't change the past, but I can change how I show up for you now," he pleaded, desperation lacing his tone. The words sliced through the air, igniting a mix of anger and longing in her heart. She had fought too hard to regain her own identity and struggled to reclaim her independence after feeling suffocated by the shadows he cast. "You're asking for everything, but I can't just forget the pain," Hana admitted finally, tears pooling in her eyes. "I need to know that I'm not just an option in your journey." With each passing heartbeat, the stakes escalated. Junho's heart raced as he felt the emotional distance burgeon between them. His memories cascaded through him like a torrent. The times he dismissed her, the moments of emotional neglect, the way he lost sight of what truly mattered. And now, with every beat of his heart, he confronted a startling truth. He had to show Hana he recognized her worth beyond what he once claimed. "I'm willing to let you go if that's what you truly want. But know that I will always fight for your love," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Just don't forget that I'm here, waiting and hoping that one day you might trust me again." Hana's breath quivered as she processed his words. Could she step toward the possibility of rekindling something beautiful, or would it only lead to more heartache? The gap between them felt like an ocean, vast and unyielding, but in that moment she understood that some wounds take time to heal. The love they shared transformed into something unnameable, a bittersweet reminder of what could have been. Finally, with a shaky breath and a heart awash with resolve, Hana turned away from him, the glow of the gallery enveloping her like a comforting embrace. "I need space, Junho. Time to heal and rediscover myself," she said softly, each word a small act of bravery that filled her heart with newfound clarity. As she walked away, head held high, the realization settled within her. Moving forward sometimes meant letting go, prioritizing her own journey of self-discovery over the lingering echoes of a painful past. Meanwhile, Junho remained standing amidst the vibrant ambiance, memories flooding his thoughts. The absence of Hana illuminated the painful lessons of what genuine love required, nurturing and presence rather than neglect. In that gallery filled with art that captured the essence of emotion, Junho understood that the woman who had once brightened his world was now embarking on a journey of her own. Though the bittersweet reality stung, it also ignited a desire within him to transform, to learn from his mistakes, and to confront the man his heart yearned to be. As Hana stepped into the night, the path ahead shimmered with possibilities, promising a future where she could craft the life she wanted, one grounded in self-love and independence. And for Junho, he stood at the precipice of self-discovery, finally ready to face the reality of his choices and the man he wished to become. The chapters of their stories might diverge at this moment, but crucial lessons lingered in the echoes of their bittersweet love. And as they both began their journeys anew, hope flourished, an inspiring reminder that sometimes true love meant finding the strength to let go. What would you do if you were in Hana or Junho's place? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.